بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So this is the final, inshallah, halaqah of this semester. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as possible. There's actually 34 on the form right now. That's a lot of questions. I don't know if I'll get through many of them, but I will go through as many as possible. I'll start with the last maybe 7 or 8 questions, inshallah. I won't start with the last one. I'll start with the ones a bit before that, where we had left off last time. Or actually, let's just start from the beginning of the end and go up. Okay, the Messenger ﷺ said, narrated in Muslim, that there is no Jew or Christian among this nation of mine that hears of me and does not believe in me except that they are from people of hell. Does this not then nullify the argument mentioned previously that Unitarian Christian can enter paradise? Okay, so that's a heavy one. So when we talk about, again, when we take a hadith, and we take a specific hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, and we don't look at any context regarding it, then you're going to be stuck with the big problem. You'll find that many ahadith, if understood in a divine manner, meaning with no context related, then you'll find that the Quran is giving it a bit of a different narrative. It's not exactly the same thing. The Prophet ﷺ did speak. There's other ahadith that also strengthen that one, meaning that he said something like that a number of times during his life. What is understood from this is that during his life, if they heard of him and they got to meet him and they were in interaction with him and they refused to believe in him, even though he offered them the faith, then yes, they would be people to be punished. It does not mean necessarily that from now till the day of judgment, that every person who hears of Muhammad and does not believe in him the way that it was required, that they will not be from the people of Jannah. And there's a difference here. The difference is the context of time, in the context of personalizing the experience. There's a difference between meeting him himself and discussing with him and listening to him, and then hearing about him or hearing of him. They're not exactly the same thing. So that's one thing. Another thing is, how do we know that and why? Because how do we know if Islam was presented to them the way, the proper way in which they would be able to actually believe in this final message? Meaning, how do we know that every person today, every Christian and Jew today, had Islam presented to them in the way that would make enough sense for them to accept it as a faith? We know if they met the Prophet ﷺ himself, that would be established. But we do not know if they met others, or the time they were living in, or the place they were living in, that was actually offered to them. And then when you take the Quran itself, and you look, the Quran does give criteria for belief. And the criteria of belief in the Quran, time and time again, is repeated, مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Right? مَن يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Sometimes the iman billah subhanahu wa ta'ala wahdahu, meaning believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only sin that he doesn't forgive when you read the Quran is shirk. The only sin that he does not forgive, that is between him and his, between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his creations, is shirk. Anything beyond shirk, he can forgive. That's why the argument is that as long as there's no shirk, we hope for them Jannah. Again, we have no ability to judge and to assign people destinations. No matter what happens, we always come back to the same problem. It doesn't leave us ever. We always have this need or this feeling that we want to say where people are going. You can never do that as a Muslim. It's not you don't know where you are going. How do you find any ease in assigning other people's destinations, whether Jannah or Jahannam? What you do is you recite the Quran and then you take that for yourself personally, and you make sure that you are not falling in the issues that the Quran warned of and forbade, and you are following the commands that the Quran put forward. However, to say, well, these people are going to Jahannam and these people are going to Jannah, that's problematic. That is very problematic, and that shows that we're not thinking in the right direction. We're not using the Quran for what it's there for. It's not a catalog for destinations. You're gonna open. All right, what's your name again? All right. Oh, obviously you don't know anything. Well, no one knows anything. You can't know anything about yourself. We just learned that what this hadith tells us, the hadith that was put in the question, is that it is upon us, it's obligatory for us to spread the message of Islam even to Jews and Christians. Because you may think that we shouldn't spread it to them when you study the Quran. You may think that maybe we shouldn't because they already have their covenants, because they were already given prophets and their prophets had books and they followed them. Why would they have to switch to the Prophet ﷺ's message? So these ahadith tell that we still have to spread the message. Now, how it all works out and what they end up doing, that's a whole different thing. What is stronger, the hadith that was narrated or the ayah in the Quran that says he'll forgive everything but shirk? They're not the same. You cannot weigh them equally. That's why the argument for those who believe in God subhanahu wa ta'ala, the oneness of God, is that inshallah we hope that they will enter Jannah. Again, we have no idea. It is none of our business whatsoever. We cannot, I find it to be very futile and very trivial for us to waste any time whatsoever talking about issues that involve other people's destinations. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to follow the way of the Prophet and the way of Islam to the best of our ability and spread this message to everyone as much as we can. Warning and giving good tidings of good news. Giving good news, telling them that inshallah there's Jannah waiting. But besides that, when it comes to what happens if I don't, what happens if I do, that's really between you and God will take care of that. But the only thing you can do is offer a warning and say, well look, this action, there is a punishment that is being warned related to it. Read it. Just read it. It doesn't mean that this person is going to be punished. There's a difference between saying, look, there's a punishment that is related to this action, and there's a difference between that and saying you are going to be punished because of doing this. There's a very different thing. The first one is law. The second one is a verdict. A verdict is only given by a judge, whom is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. No one else gives verdicts. But the law, you recite the law. You tell this is the law, this is what he's saying. Right? Just be careful, be aware. Now giving out verdicts, that's the work of Allah. You don't do that. No one should have the audacity to do that ever. That's a level of arrogance that is way too high for anyone. You never ever give a verdict. However, you do recite the law to anyone who is interested in learning the law. And those are two different things. So there are many ahadith. That hadith I was given the example of in this question. There are many ahadith like that as well. But they're understood within the context of the time of the Prophet ﷺ, what he was talking about, and you benefit from it in terms of understanding what your obligation is. Again, this is not assigning destinations. They're two very, very different things. Okay. So that's my take on that. The question and questions that are similar to that one. I'll do the one before it, inshallah. Is it wrong in Islam for one to try and change, manipulate their or their offspring's genetic code for purposes such as increasing lifespan, height, or immunity? Well, until we actually understand the human genetic code properly, until we understand the genome well enough to actually do anything to it without causing extreme harm, then yes, it's haram. Because you don't really know what you're doing yet. We still don't understand it. We know that, I'll give you an example. Today we understand within genetics that the genetic code that you have, you write it as you live your life. Basically, it changes based on your diet, based on the level of stress you carry in your life, based on what you do and based on where you go, and based on who you deal with. Meaning every interaction that you have in your life is being recorded in your genes. How? We don't know yet. All we know for now is just the A in front of C, G, or just those pairs, and we don't understand. There's things that are a bit more detailed within the genetic code that we still don't understand. So when you manipulate with that, and you play around with it, you don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. So until we arrive at inshallah we will, the human race arrive at a level of knowledge where you're capable of removing from the genetic code all diseases and issues that are problematic, then playing around with the human genes is something that Wallahu a'lam is harmful. Before we say it's haram, or the reason we're going to say it's haram is because it's harmful, and because you're playing around with something you don't understand yet. You could cause a lot of harm to human beings. There's a lot of ethical issues regarding playing with the human genetics. They're not all religious, by the way. A lot of these arguments are just human ethics that are kind of taken out of the context of religion altogether, and people still have difficulty and accepting playing around with human genes. So I think this discussion is a bit premature, and we're still far from being at a point where we can start interfering and coming in and playing with the genes and just removing the thing that you want to remove without actually touching on anything else. But we know today that there's more to the genes than just what you inherit from your parents. Is that you, within your interactions, the way you live your life, the way you eat, your diet, your health, everything that you do actually affects your genetic code as well, and it rewrites it. And that's the beauty of understanding DNA. These are things that scientists year after year. Every 5-6 years there's a breakthrough with understanding the human genome that dictates upon us to be a bit more, to take more time in terms of immediately intervening. Because when you intervene, you could end up really messing things up badly. We've seen examples of that today, like when it comes, because they do that with lab animals, they do that with rats and rabbits and different types of sheep, and the results have not have kind of been somewhere in the middle. We're still not clear on whether this is going to work or not, but we're learning. And I think until it's clear, no, you shouldn't be playing around with the human genetics. Wallahu a'lam. If the question was specific, is it okay to increase if we were to arrive at that, let's say that theoretically or hypothetically, that we arrived at a point where yes, we do know exactly what is it that we're doing, and we're not going to cause any problem whatsoever, and it's all good, and we understand it properly, can we do something that would enhance good attributes with the human being? I don't see any reason why not. Does it fall under فَلْيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ? No, that you have to go back to the context of that surah and of that ayah. It's not really talking about it's commonly misunderstood. So yeah, you could strengthen your immunity. When it comes to playing on with the face, let's wait until we actually can do that. How about we leave that question until the day comes where you're able to come and to enter the human genetic code and basically rearrange everything that has to do with their appearance and their height and all that. But before that, Wallahu A'lam, we should just stick with what we know. Okay. Were there more questions added? Oh no. All right. Is it wrong in Islam for one to try and change? Oh, we did that. To give hasanat for a parent who has passed away. I know we can do sadaqah jariyah would they get hasanat for other good deeds. So they would get hasanat for other good deeds if your parent passes away. Any good deed that you do in their name or for them as an offspring, will count for them. But that's specific for you as a son or as a daughter, or as someone that they contributed heavily into their development. So if I have a friend and I do a hasanah for him, he may benefit from it, he may not benefit from it that much because we're peers. However, your child is viewed in Islam as your amal, as he's a part of your actions, meaning the child that you have, because you raised this child and took care of it, so it's a part of the deeds that you did. So if this child continues to do good deeds in your name, then you'll get a lot of hasanat for that. It's as if you're doing it yourself. However, if others, they do deeds and they gift it to you, then there's difference of opinion among scholars when it actually arrives to you, how much of it arrives and how much will actually benefit. There's a difference of opinion among scholars, a heavy difference of opinion among scholars throughout all years. But yes, as a son, as a daughter, whatever good deeds you do for your parents, it will arrive to them. And they will benefit from it. Whether it's reading Quran, whether it's doing Hajj, whether it's giving charity, whether it's starting a foundation, whatever it is, you get hasanat. You get hasanat for it. Yes.
Do you have to do that thing with the intention that you're sending it to your parents, or is it just like?
So if you have the intention, then they get more. And without the intention, they still get something of it. Because everything that you do is, especially if your parents have contributed positively to the fact that you're doing it. Let's say that your parents, random parents, they didn't raise their kids properly at all. But their kids grew up to be good people. So when they do good deeds without the intention, a lot of that may not reach the parent. The reason is because they didn't really contribute to that properly. But if the intention is there, then yes, they will benefit from it. And it's one of the three things that benefit you after you die. What are the three things? One of them is, of course, وَلَدْ صَالِحْ يَدْعُو لَهُ, a son or a daughter, an offspring that will continuously contribute to hasanat. وَعِلْمٌ يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ, right? So you benefit from knowledge. If you are someone who was knowledgeable and you taught, then that is something that will, or sadaqah jariyah. And if you do something, you do a good deed, and that good deed will outlive you. Meaning, if you build a hospital, or you build a school, you build something that will continuously help people, then you get hasanat. And anything that your children do, you will get ajr for, because children are considered a part of your actions, actually a part of your deeds. Allahu A'lam. When it comes to peers, there's a difference of opinion among scholars whether it will actually arrive to you or not. All right. Question after that. How do you're deleting the questions, right? So, is there alimony after the iddah? What about child support? Yes, of course. The nafaqat al-tifl is upon the man, meaning the father will always have to. Actually, in Islam, it's almost purely the man who has to pay for his child. So after the iddah, let's say two people got divorced. It was a final divorce. She goes through the iddah. They're not going to get back together. She has a child. Child in Islam stays with the mother. It's within the right to the mother. He or she will stay with the mother until they have the ability to choose whether they don't want to stay or not. Meaning they actually are emancipated. They can go and do whatever they want, basically. But as long as they're children, they stay with the mother, and the father has to pay. And nafaqa wal qisṭ bil ma'ruf, meaning the father still has to pay for the education, the food, and the clothing of this child. Is a bit different than here. In Canada, I think it's a 50-50 thing, right? Or there's percentage between who's going to. When it comes to alimony, who knows how much the man is supposed to to pay? Does he pay for everything? I don't think he pays for everything, right? I think he pays for a certain percentage of how much this child is going to need. What?
I think it's how much he makes.
Yeah, so it's based on income, and it's based on, and there's also a percentage. So meaning the mother will also have to carry a certain percentage of how much this child needs. In Islam, no, the man has to pay for it all. So once they're divorced, he has to continue to pay for the child's food and clothing for as long as until that child is capable of taking care of itself. Okay. From Islamic perspective, how do you deal with stubborn family members, parents and siblings specifically, that don't listen to you and give you relevant and outdated out of context requests and advice? Okay, it's a very general question. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking. I'm going to assume what the question means. And assume that the advice you're getting is Islamic advice that you feel is very old school and just doesn't fit in with the more modern context. That's what I think this means. I'm not sure.
What's the question?
The question is, how do you deal with stubborn family members that don't listen to you and give you outdated advice? Well, I'm going to take a look at the root problem with the question that I think needs to be solved. You're not supposed to try and control people to begin with, meaning you're only supposed to control yourself. That's the main part of life. Is that you take care of you, make sure that you are doing what you need to do. When it comes to others, you're responsible of nurturing, encouraging, advising, helping, supporting. You are not in any situation to control. Control is not your thing. I mean, if you try to control things in life, you will live and die a very unhappy person. You'll be a very bitter person at the end, because it's impossible to control anything. You will try and you will fail. Maybe just stop trying to do it, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to control us, then He would have Himself. We don't need. He gave us freedom of choice for a reason. It is upon you to do the best you can in terms of supporting, encouraging, raising properly, and supporting. Now, what happens often is this. What happens is that families, they start out like me. I get married 7-8 years in. You have a kid. Doesn't really matter. It's only 4 or 5. Whatever. Like no big deal. And then you're in the haze of life for like 10 years. And then 10 years from now you wake up. You're like, oh, I have to have an Islamic family, but the kid's 15 years old. It's too late now. And a lot of people don't want to accept that they made a big mistake and they're late. A lot of people don't want to accept that fact that you're 15 years late. You're very late to the appointment. You've made a big mistake. Accept the fact that you made this mistake, that you didn't put enough effort, time, energy, that you didn't seek help and seek therapy and seek whatever you need to seek to make sure that your family all grew up with a similar mindset, with a proper level of commitment to the deen. It didn't happen now. Now it's damage control. Now you just try and keep this family together as much as possible. You have to accept the fact of the consequences of what you did. And even if you do really, really well, meaning you choose the perfect spouse and you have children and you focus on raising them from day one, you're not better than Nuh alayhi salam. Nuh lost his kid. Nuh lost his kid didn't listen to him, and he died a kafir, and he couldn't do anything about it. You're not better than Nuh, you're not better than Lut alayhi salam. I mean, these things will happen anyway. You're not supposed to try and control them. You're supposed to try and help them, right? Do your best to support and advise and enlighten within the limitations of your abilities, to be honest, within the family. Like if you're the youngest of the family, I'm sorry to say, no one's listening to you for a while. No one's going to be listening to you for quite some time until you achieve a certain level of education and stability. Then maybe you can give back. If you're the eldest child, then no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough, because everyone expects everything from you at all times. You're expected to take care of both your parents and all your siblings and yourself all at once, and it's just you're the hanger of all problems. Just you could have done better, and that's okay. And then if you're the middle child, you're always lost. No one seems to remember your name until the end. And then so it's hard. Within families, it's very difficult for you to find out what you actually can do. However, be supportive, be open-minded. Try to understand people's where they are in their journey. Try to understand what the causes are of their struggle, and be there for them to the best of your ability. I'm not saying that you give in when it comes to you don't compromise your fundamentals. You hold on to what is right, but you can't understand that not everyone is going to do the same. in their life. And you can't control them, and you weren't required by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to control them. Now, if we're talking, again, the question is very vague, so I don't know exactly what the idea here is. But if it is regarding issues, well, my sister is doing this and it's haram and it's shaming, well, that's just too bad. Things have changed dramatically. It's not like it was a long time ago, where families were much tighter and there was social pressure that made both female and male all behave differently and have limitations to their behaviors based on the fact that the society wouldn't allow you to make mistakes. We live in a place where that doesn't exist at all. It doesn't exist for males, it doesn't exist for females. You're living here. If you don't like that, then maybe you shouldn't live here. But if you're going to live here, that's how it is. You have to accept there's a lot of good living here, there's a lot of freedoms, there's a lot of opportunities, and there's also other things that can happen that you should be okay with. And I'm not talking about our generation. Our generation is much different. Well, maybe not too different, but we're a bit different than our older generations. If you go live maybe today anywhere in the Middle East, you'll find a narrative that is very different. Parents view certain behaviors will become very problematic within a family. It can cause a lot of shame and a lot of difficulty of socializing after that. I'm not defending it. At the same time, I'm not throwing it down the chute either. Like, some of it is obviously wrong, and some of it is actually important to have. So societies self-regulate. They self-regulate by assigning good habits and bad habits and making sure that everyone lives up to those standards. Not all of that is wrong. Not all of that is bad. Not all of it. Some of it is, but not all of it. It's needed. If there's no sense of what's right and wrong in a society, then the human self-regulation system is usually a bit weak, especially in those early years of life. You need to know that if I do this, I'm going to be pointed out, I'm going to be called out, I can't do it, and that will help you until you reach a certain age of maturity where you understand, we need this. We need to act like this in order for everything to work, because it's not just about what I want and what I need, it's about what everyone wants and everyone needs. And I think sometimes that is lost. If that was I hope that was the focus of the question, I don't know. But generally speaking, when it comes to advice, you can just, I do the بالعربي أنا مذهبي مذهب الخروف when you get bad advice. So ever seen a sheep? A sheep just goes like this. Just nod your head and move on. Especially when it's outdated advice. I just say, all right, don't fight everything. Choose your fights with your parents and with your siblings, especially when it comes to religious advice. Choose what you're going to say. No, that's wrong. That's not how we're supposed to think. And other things that aren't that important. And I'll give you an example. When it comes to haircuts, maybe. Haircuts, whatever. Just whatever they like to see. Just don't make a big deal about a haircut. But look for other stuff. When it comes to maybe other Islamic concepts that are very negative and very, maybe even sometimes cultural opinions that are misogynistic and oppressive even, that you should speak up against them and don't accept them. And be clear about that. If you find racism in your family, then speak out against that as well. Bigotry But when it comes to simple stuff, choose your battles, because you can't win them all, and you have to be wise in terms of what you're going to stand up against. All right. How did the madahib? What's going on here? How did the madahib deal with the rape charges brought forward with less than 4 shuhud? Is that the question? Yeah, 4 witnesses. Rape is different than zina. They're not the same thing. Rape is dealt with as a criminal accusation, and the madahib here deal with it like they would deal with any other accusation of misconduct or harassment or transgression. I mean, if I came up to the judge and I said someone stole something from me, how would he go on with how would he move forward with that accusation? Certain steps will be taken. There would be someone to investigate, there would be bayyina, I need to provide some evidence, and so on. The same thing goes when someone would accuse someone else of rape. The only thing that you would find different in the books of fiqh regarding rape is that most of the Islamic madahib, if not all of them, did not see rape possible between two couples, between married people. Like a wife couldn't come up and say, well, my husband raped me. That was the only thing that maybe today is a bit different than it was back then. But that's the only situation. But if someone comes up, whether it's male or female, to say that I was raped by someone, that this was going to be dealt with as a criminal charge, and then the investigation would continue with that. And the madhab don't have a unified way of looking at it, and it's more of case by case type of approach to begin with. So I'm not sure what exactly if there's a specific context to this question, but it's treated just like any other act of transgression would be treated. The fact that it is a sexual assault is something that is difficult to both talk about and to express, and then back then to investigate. And today it's even hard to investigate, even with all the technology that we actually have today. But back then it was much more difficult, and because of stuff like that, a lot of the Islamic regulations that exist in terms of when it comes to women traveling alone to places where it's not safe, and there's a lot of these regulations that are there so that stuff like this wouldn't happen, because they're very hard to deal with. They scar the individual probably for life, and even pinpointing what happened, at least back then, was almost impossible. It was very, very difficult. But it wasn't dealt with in any differently. The only difference you would find was within marriages. So within marriages, if you came and said, well, he raped me and he's her husband, then it would be dropped, or the focus of it would change. And it wouldn't be a charge of rape. It would be something else. They would talk about either khud', they would talk about talaq, or they would talk about some act of separating, but they wouldn't take it as this was an act of rape. But that's how it was. And this is like 800, 900 years ago. Things were a bit different back then, but nothing else changes. You don't need 4 witnesses for rape. The 4 witnesses concept is only needed regarding when someone accuses 2 people of zina. When they're accused of adultery, then if you're going to say something about it, if you're going to say the names of these people, you better have 4 other witnesses who saw them in a public place. Besides that, you don't say anything. You stay quiet. When it comes to rape has nothing to do with 4 witnesses. This is now here something that's very, very different. This is a criminal charge that will be investigated within a criminal setting by judges and those who are involved. Okay. If a woman's income far exceeds, what's going on here? Far exceeds her husband's, is there any obligation for her to spend on the family? No. Islamically, really, no. She's not obligated to spend on the family ever. Whatever she makes for herself. However, usually if a woman makes that much money, that means her investment in the house and in the kids is usually going to be less. So there's usually some understanding between the man and the woman on terms of how we're going to fund this household, whatever you agree to with your spouse is fine. Whatever 2 people who are getting married want to agree to in terms of who's going to be the primary breadwinner or financial provider is fine. If they want to agree that she's going to be the primary breadwinner, that's fine. Specifically if you get married, if what the man does is something that usually can be done at home, or it's a part-time type of thing on and off, and the lady is a physician, or she's a surgeon, or she's a pharmacist, or a teacher, and she works long hours and set dates, and it's making more, and then that's fine. Whatever they agree to in terms of who's going to be doing this and who's going to do that, that's pretty much set. However, Islam does put a default situation. So the default situation is that the man makes the money, and he has to spend everything he makes on the family and on his wife and on his children. Whatever the woman makes, or whatever money comes her way, whether through inheritance, whether through gifts, whether if she's working, it's hers. If she wants to use it, then that's something extra that she is doing for the family. Right? And that is a default situation. However, if there's a different agreement, meaning when they're getting married, there's something that they're agreeing to, whether verbally or written and signed, then that's fine as well. وَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا تَرَضَيْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الْفَرِيضَةِ. After the fariḍah. What's the fariḍah for zawaj? Where she's accepted, he asked for marriage, she accepted, they had a mahr, and there's two people who are witnesses. That's the fariḍah. That's it, we're done. Now they're married. Whatever they agree to beyond that point is up to them. And whatever they sit down and agree upon, and they're okay with, then they move forward with. Is there a default situation? Yes, the Islam puts forward a default thing, so that we can talk rights and obligations. However, if we want to change any of that, we want to talk about something different, or we want to decrease a certain obligation upon someone or increase it on someone else, if both of them are consenting adults, then that's fine. Many households, Muslim households that I know of, that I grew up with, the woman worked and the man didn't, and he took care of the kids. He was a happy guy. I don't know how he did it, but he was a happy guy. He took care of the kids, and she worked, and that's fine. And some of them is 50-50, and some of them is different percentages. You basically, as an individual, you make up your mind. What is it that you want to do? And then when you're being approached for marriage, or you're approaching for marriage, you make sure that that's clear, so that there's no misunderstanding. But no, Islamically speaking, from an obligatory point of view, especially if there's no. So let's say we don't agree to anything. We just do the shuhud and we move forward. Well, if you don't do anything, then the Islamic law is what is default, right? Whatever she makes is hers. Whatever she makes is hers. But also by default, the kids are hers too. That makes sense? So by default, she's the primary caregiver of the children. So by default, if she has kids, they didn't agree to anything, and she's like, I'm not going to take care of them, I'm going to go work. No, she can't do that in the marriage. She's obligated. Or she sits with her husband and they agree to something. And then he may say, all right, you can work, you work, I'll be the primary caregiver, but now you have to use your money. You have to pay for. You have to pump your money into the household. Does that make sense? So it's something, and most of these things are agreed upon among spouses. Like most marriages I know about Islamic, Muslim people, they have one bank account and it's shared and whatever. It's really something. And others I know, each one has its own bank account, do their own thing. Again, whatever they agree upon is fine. But by default, she doesn't have to. If something changes and they want to agree, then they can do that too. So it's really up to the consenting adults with whatever they want to do. Yes?
What exactly happens when one of the parties breaks part of the contract? Is it immediate?
No, not really. There's usually when خفتم شقاق بينهما, right? فبعثوا حكما من أهله وحكما من أهلها إن يريد إصلاحا يوفق الله بينهما. So if there's some problem and they're fighting and there's a disagreement and someone's breaching the contract, then you send people who are mediators from both sides to talk about it, to try and find. These are social problems. These are intimate social problems. There are no laws that can fix these things. These are very, I don't know if you've ever been involved in a marriage problem before, but it is like the worst thing you can ever be involved in. There's so much he said and she said and he did and you have no idea who's right. And there are opposite narratives. Like opposites, there's no middle ground in the narratives you're hearing from both sides. It's amazing. Everyone will you draw the other person to be the demon in disguise, and it's not. So you need people to mediate to find ways to fix these problems. So there's no immediate nullification just because of a breach of a contract. But if it's continuously breached, then there's different ways to do it. There's either talaq or khula', both of them the same thing, meaning they'll part ways, they'll be divorced, and they'll move on. Right? So it's really up to again. It comes back to the choice of the two individuals. The society's obligation here, or role, that is rarely taken seriously, is islah, is trying to bring some reform into the marriage. We're trying to help them to stay together. We try to hold on to families. We don't try and rip families apart. That's our duty. So be very, very careful when you speak about two people who are married, or you speak to one of them, or be very careful about your involvement. Your level of involvement, because we try to keep families together. Of course, unless there's abuse, and that's a whole different story. But besides that, like if it's a matter of disagreement, and you always try to keep the family together, because who gets lost in all these problems? It's always the kids. They'll always pay the price for all these type of problems. The kids, they'll pay for it, and then when these two people are in their 60s and their kids are not functioning properly and their families are a mess, and they'll wonder why. Oh, that's why. Because you didn't. This is a very sacred thing. It's not. There's nothing more sacred than the family, the unit that you build. You build a unit. You and your spouse, and you start. This is the most sacred thing you have. This is your number one obligation in life. It's making sure that you do this right, and you offer these kids the best, in everything, and you give them a head start in life on every front. But I hope that was the focus of the question. All right, so question after that: What do you think is the cause of so many young Muslims getting divorced within months of marriage? What can we do to prevent it? Subhanallah, we lost our advantage when you spoke as a Muslim, like in social gatherings, universal ones, international ones. Muslims always had an advantage. We always have to say, but our families work better. Yeah, we're ignorant, we're illiterate, and yeah, we're poor, and our countries suck, and it's a lot of corruption. But we have better families. Now we don't even have that anymore. We can't even say that anymore. Like, we don't have the ability to say no, because we don't, because the percentages of divorce are coming, are hastily, very quickly coming closer to the percentages of divorce all around the world, and we're losing that edge that we used to have. I think the reason is that we're not even raising our kids with the understanding that this is one of your main roles that you're going to fulfill as a Muslim, as a Khalifa on the planet, as someone who is put with the responsibility of serving Allah. One of the main roles you're going to serve is as a spouse and a father, whether to biological offsprings or to aitam, whatever it is you're going to get. No Muslim back in the day was not taking care of children, whether their children or other children. You're always taking care of kids. The Prophet ﷺ took care of Ja'far and took care of Ali and took care of Zayd, and these weren't his kids. And Khadija's house was filled. She had 4 or 6 of her own, and then she had 4 or 5 that weren't hers. Kids for but that she took care of because they needed to take care of. You take care of the next generation. It's one of your It's one of your primary roles as a Muslim, and that we've sucked out of the deen. Basically, it was removed at one night, everyone was sleeping, removed, and no one noticed in the morning. And that just basically brought down the whole society and civilization that we have. Meaning, if you are prepared as a young man, that the moment you have the ability, you start a unit. You look for a spouse that is pious, that is more pious than you, that has more deen in them than you, and you get attached, and you start a family. The importance of having a family and raising kids. And I think that was taken out both of the male mind, out of the male mind, and out of the female mind a bit more even. Like, when you talk to sisters, you find it to be even less the importance of being a mother, or the role of being a mother. It's not flashy anymore. It's not important. It's actually not frowned down upon, but it's boring, I guess, and it's something that I don't know what is more. I don't understand what is more important or more genuine or more valuable than bringing forward new life and then nurturing that new life to be. When you and I sit here with these functioning minds talking about stuff and acting like we know things, the only reason that we're doing that is because we had a mother who was there every single day. Like when I said in my mind, she was there every day, like doing everything basically. She taught me everything I know. I wouldn't be here. So for me to abandon that role altogether and say it's not my thing doesn't make much sense, because basically you're killing this continuation. And then you ask, well, forget about the naturalist approach to this. Is there an Islamic context? Is there an Islamic obligation? Yes, of course. This is one of the biggest things in the deen, which is bringing the next generation forward and raising children to be good Muslims and starting a lineage of salah, of good behavior and strong families. This is the whole point. This is one of the biggest things that you can do. It's not the only role that you carry. Being a father or a mother is not the only role, but it's one of the big ones, and it has to be kind of I guess embedded into the mentality of the people. Being a spouse and being a fathering or mothering children, whether it's your biological ones or it's not, and whether it's your children or not really. In Islam, another thing that is lost, which is kafaratul yatim, the concept of taking care of orphans and bringing them into your homes and raising them, and allowing a child that no one loves to love it and to nurture it. There's a lot of ajr in that. And if not that, then your own. But the reason that divorce is happening is because we don't value family anymore. We're not going into marriage with the concept of I am fulfilling my role of starting a family. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do, and is a part of being a Muslim and being a part of the Muslim society. It's more of just fulfilling maybe a sexual desire, or maybe fulfilling a societal pressure upon that you have to get married. Like once they're 25, 26, we're like, you have to get married. I do it too. Like, you're gonna get married. Like, I don't want to. I know you don't want to. We're gonna get married anyway. Like, you're doing it. Just go choose and khalasni, and you're going to get married today. And whether male or female. Why? Because there's societal pressure.